Just ignore that nuisance. She is probably just overreacting and pretending to be in pain. Just leave her be. I found a pregnant woman in distress on the side of the road. But my boss, who was with me, blurted out this outrageous comment. I thought it was incredibly harsh, but what followed was something I could never have anticipated. My name is Michael. I was raised in a typical family, with my dad working as an office worker and my mom being a homemaker who also worked part-time. My mom was kind, but my dad was strict. He was meticulous about manners, from how to greet people to how to hold cutlery, and instilled discipline in me about even the smallest things. My dad himself was very serious, and at work, he was known to be reliable, taking any job seriously. At home, he often said, "Live life earnestly." He emphasized the importance of studying hard so I wouldn't face difficulties in the future. Of course, I did my homework, and I also had a tutor, so compared to other kids my age, I didn't play much and instead spent a lot of time studying. Of course, I played with friends, but often I had to leave early because of the class with the tutor. My friends sometimes sympathized with me, saying, "It must be tough studying so much." It was indeed tough, but it also had its benefits. I didn't struggle with exams. I got into the top college prep school in my hometown, and I was accepted into my first-choice prestigious university right out of high school. After graduating from university, I landed a job at a fairly well-known private company. When I first started, I was completely lost and struggled every day. I was barely managing to get through the tasks assigned to me, and I would come home exhausted. When I discussed this with my dad, he gave me this advice. At first, I struggled too, but remember, if you keep at it seriously without giving up, you'll gradually get the hang of it. It's important to do every job properly. I took his advice and started tackling each task diligently. Gradually, I became accustomed to the work. At the same time, my colleagues and bosses began to appreciate my reliable work ethic. From there, my career progressed smoothly. Because I was well-mannered, I gained my boss's trust and gradually started being entrusted with more important tasks. Even when going out for drinks with clients, my neat-eating habits were praised, making a good impression on them. Inwardly, I was thankful to my dad. As a child, I sometimes found his words annoying, but entering society, I faced no troubles at all. I was glad for the strict upbringing. With good interpersonal relationships at work, supported by colleagues and bosses, I continued to achieve good results. My salary increased, and as a way of thanking my parents for raising me, I gifted them a trip to a hot springs resort. My dad was really excited to go. I chose the hot springs trip because my dad had always wanted to go. For once, my dad was visibly overjoyed. It seems the trip was enjoyable, and upon their return, my parents thanked me. Knowing my parents had a good time meant the world to me. Shortly after that, an opportunity for promotion came my way. I was delighted to take it up. I was thrilled to be promoted faster than any of my peers. At that time, the company was doing well, and I imagined I would continue working there, climb the ranks, and retire. However, the year following my promotion, the company's performance began to decline. The economy turned sour, and we felt the impact. The senior management ordered us to cut costs drastically. Moreover, layoffs were conducted, mainly targeting older employees. Although I wasn't laid off, my salary plateaued, and the company's downturn continued unabated. Eventually, the company was decided to be shut down. It was regrettable, especially since I had been blessed with good relationships there, but there was nothing to be done, and I couldn't just sit and lament. I needed to find a new job quickly, but fortunately, I was lucky. When I told my college friend Tom about my situation, he offered me a job at his company. Apparently, one of the employees had to leave abruptly due to a sudden illness, and they were looking for someone to fill the position. When I heard about the job details, it turned out to be quite similar to what I had been doing at my previous company. Although the scale was a bit smaller compared to my previous company, I wasn't in a position to be picky at this point. I decided to take the job. I was told I'd still need to go through an interview, so I went to the interview location at the scheduled time. The interviewers were CEO Rachel and a person from HR. Rachel was still in her 30s, quite young for a CEO, and she was very beautiful. I managed to respond to all the questions without any issues, and I was offered the job on the spot. I was nervous about whether I'd be able to do well in this new environment, but having an acquaintance there made me feel more at ease than when I joined my previous company. Since we knew each other, Tom became my mentor and taught me various things. As I had heard, the job was similar to my previous one, so I was able to get accustomed to it quickly. However, just when I started to feel settled, Tom ended up leaving the company. His parents ran a traditional American bakery, and it seems they had an accident and could no longer work. So, Tom had to take over the family business all of a sudden. Tom apologized to me with a look of regret. "Sorry for suddenly leaving after inviting you here," he said. "It's okay. It's not your fault. Good luck back at home." I reassured Tom like that, but the days felt somewhat lonely after he left. Since I was still new to the company, it was difficult to say I had really bonded with the other employees. I didn't have anyone I could talk to easily. I decided to start from scratch, work diligently, and build trust again. A little while after Tom left, there was a significant change. We got a new boss. His name was John Smith. He was just a year older than me and was known to be quite capable. I was hopeful that we might get along well since we were close in age. On the day John was to join our department, I was a bit excited. When I arrived at work, I saw an unfamiliar man sitting at a desk, playing with his phone. A nameplate on the desk read Smith. I went up to greet him immediately. "Good morning. I'm Michael, and I'll be working with you from today. Nice to meet you." However, John's response was not welcoming. He looked at me with an annoyed expression and said, "I'm in the middle of a game. Don't talk to me," and went back to his phone. My excitement quickly deflated. I thought his attitude was inappropriate, but since he was my boss and it was our first meeting, I didn't want to start any trouble. I apologized and hurried to my seat. When it was time for his formal introduction to the team, he said, "Nice to meet you all," but he seemed to lack enthusiasm. And so, my days of working with John began. However, it was clear that he looked down on his subordinates. Whenever someone made a mistake, he would berate them, saying things like, "Can't you even do this much? That's why you won't get ahead." And for some reason, he seemed to particularly dislike me. I wondered if interrupting his game had bothered him that much, but it seemed to be more than that. He took issue with my earnest nature. "You said in your interview that being serious about your work is important, right? I hate people like that the most," he told me. I was taken aback when he said this. When I asked why he hated serious people, he simply said, "I've always clashed with those types. I just hate them, that's all." It's frustrating to be disliked for no fault of my own. I have become quite averse to John. He started harassing me in petty ways. For example, he would assign me a large data organization task that normally would be done by several people, and he demanded it be done by tomorrow. It was impossible for one person alone. "I can finish this by myself, even if I work all night. Can I get some help from someone else?" I asked. When I said this, he sneered, "Oh, Mr. Serious can't do it. Relying on others now, are you?" I was furious, but I asked some available colleagues for help, and we managed to finish it by the next day as requested. John looked displeased. "You didn't have to finish it so quickly. Actually, I wanted you to prioritize other tasks first. You're useless," he said. I was truly irritated by these words. The data organization task was probably just a way to harass me. John's harassment didn't stop there. He would always criticize me during meetings and intentionally spill coffee on my documents and reports. I wished he would stop such childish behavior, but John showed no signs of changing his attitude. Amidst this, a bowling event was organized within our department on a day off. It was an annual tradition. John said he would go, and wanting to exercise and improve relationships with other colleagues, I decided to join too. On the day of the bowling event, John was wearing a t-shirt with a tasteless skull print. Furthermore, he was adorned with a plethora of jangling necklaces. Frankly, it was flashy and tacky. Thinking he was stylish, John began to talk about his fashion sense unasked. Though no one said it out loud, everyone must have found it annoying. When the bowling started, I struck a strike right from the start. Everyone praised me, but John seemed unamused. "It's just luck. Even your form is bad," he said, dampening the mood. He probably didn't like the attention I was getting. "Watch this. I'll show you how to throw a curveball," he said arrogantly. John threw the ball with a peculiar form, but it ended up in the gutter. We all awkwardly said it was just a fluke, but the atmosphere turned uncomfortable. I continued to score high, but John's performance didn't improve. Eventually, John reached his breaking point. "I'm done with this," he yelled and stormed off somewhere. Getting so upset over a casual game of bowling was truly childish. The mood was heavy, but once we resumed bowling without him, it became enjoyable again. With the source of the tension gone, everyone had a great time. Time passed while we were having fun, and the bowling tournament was over. I won and received a prize. I was able to get closer to other employees and felt glad that I took part. When it was time to leave, I remembered John. I found him with a group of young women. I told him I was leaving, but he said, "I'm teaching these girls how to bowl, so you, the amateur, go ahead and leave." The women gave awkward smiles. They must have been annoyed inside. John's womanizing in the brief moment I looked away was astonishing. My colleagues and I were utterly dumbfounded. I had to forcefully pull John away from the women and leave the bowling alley. The women thanked me with grateful looks. This incident seemed to have greatly upset John. The relationship between John and me worsened even more. To make matters worse, an opportunity came up for John and me to work together. It was a job presenting to an important client, and as John was the team leader, he had to attend, and it just so happened that I was the only one available. John dumped the task of preparing the presentation materials on me and spent his time playing games on his phone. Realizing it was futile to say anything to him, I reluctantly began working on the materials. Since it was for an important presentation, I couldn't skimp on the effort. I meticulously crafted every part of it. I think the hard work paid off, resulting in a fine finish. Then, the day of the presentation arrived. We headed to the client's office by car. Naturally, I was the one driving. As soon as John sat in the passenger seat, he started playing games on his phone. Suppressing the urge to sigh, I started the car. Soon after we set off, it began to pour heavily. My mood grew even heavier. It must have been about 20 minutes since I started driving. When I casually looked down at the sidewalk, I saw a person crouched down without an umbrella. I quickly stopped the car on the side of the road and got out of the car. The person crouched down was a woman, and her stomach was large, making her look like a pregnant woman. She was soaking wet from the rain. "Are you okay?" I asked, but she just grimaced in pain, clutching her belly. It seemed best to take her to the hospital immediately. Since we had a car and the hospital was just a 10-minute drive away, I offered my hand to the pregnant woman, attempting to help her into the car. Just then, John rolled down the window on the passenger side. He had a frown on his face. "Michael, you're not seriously thinking of taking this woman to the hospital, are you?" "Of course, that's the plan," I replied. To my astonishment, John made an appalling remark. "Just leave her. She's probably just exaggerating her pain. Ignore her." I was dumbfounded by his cruel words. "If you really insist on taking me to the hospital, then go ahead and do it yourself." Saying this, John quickly got into the driver's seat and, ignoring my attempts to stop him, drove off. Seeing someone in distress and being abandoned like that was shocking, but this wasn't the time to blame John. The pregnant woman clearly couldn't walk to the hospital, so I took out my phone and called an ambulance. Fortunately, the ambulance arrived quickly. I ended up accompanying her. Even after receiving the necessary treatment at the hospital, the pregnant woman still looked in pain as she lay in the bed, but I was told her life wasn't in danger. I finally felt a bit relieved, but then I remembered I was in the middle of work. "If you need to get in touch with me in the future, please contact me here." Saying that, I handed my business card to the doctor and left the hospital. By the time I hurried to the client, John had already finished the presentation, claiming he had prepared all the documents himself. Seeing me, John smirked proudly. "I managed all by myself. You really weren't needed." On the drive back, John kept annoyingly repeating, "You are fired, fired." Despite feeling terrible, I took comfort in knowing the pregnant woman was safe. The next morning, I arrived at the office to find Rachel at the morning assembly, which was unusual. Wondering why she was there, Rachel, filled with anger, declared, "This company is over." As the employees murmured, she glared at John. "John, was it you who hurled abuse at a pregnant woman yesterday?" No, that must be some mistake." John tried to feign ignorance. Rachel silenced him with a stern enough. "Pretending won't help. Michael gave his business card to hospital staff, so there's no doubt it was our employee. Besides, the pregnant woman said the abusive man was in the car. The only ones who used a car during work hours yesterday were you and Michael." John was frozen in shock. Rachel continued speaking. "The pregnant lady, Lisa Brown, is the daughter of Mike Brown, a wealthy investor who put $1 million into our company when we were on the brink of bankruptcy." Lisa spoke to Mike about John, which greatly angered him. He called in a frenzy, demanding immediate transfer of management rights and the termination of all employees. John has caused a serious predicament. Rachel says we must apologize to the Brown family. Since I was present at the scene, I had to accompany them. Mike was waiting for us at the entrance. He was a man of great presence. Furious, he berated John, saying he couldn't trust a company with such employees. Mike's anger seemed unending. "I thought our company might indeed be done," as Rachel said. Then, two women appeared. One of them was Lisa. Upon seeing me, Lisa greeted, "Thank you so much. I was out for a walk when it suddenly started raining, and I began to feel pain. You are my lifesaver." The other woman smiled warmly at me. "I'm Emily, Lisa's sister. Thank you for helping us at the bowling alley." I was taken aback. She was one of the women involved with John. Emily glanced briefly at John. "You helped us by pulling this man away. He barged into our group and was insistently inviting us out for drinks and dinner." "That's good to hear. It seems I did the right thing by taking John away that time. I never imagined such a reunion." Lisa turned to Mike. "Dad, I'm not angry anymore. It's okay. With wonderful people like Michael around, this company will grow even more. Let's calm down for a moment." Emily also tried to soothe Mike. "Most employees must be sincere like Michael. It would be a waste to sever ties over one odd individual." Gradually, the anger faded from Mike's face. After a moment of silence, Mike looked at Rachel. I was furious because my daughter was treated poorly. I've reflected on my overreaction. Please continue to manage the company as before. Yes, thank you very much. Rachel smiled relievedly. Mike then smiled at me. Michael, thank you again for saving my daughters. I truly appreciate it. No, I didn't do anything special. I just did what anyone would do. I'm not a hero of justice. I was relieved Mike reconsidered. Our company could keep growing. However, it was decided that John should be disciplined, so he was transferred to a regional branch. John, to everyone's astonishment, apparently continued to look down on people at his new post without showing any remorse. This led to a strike among the employees, causing a major issue. In the end, John decides to quit his job and seems to be on the streets. Moreover, he seems to be suffering from debt due to paying too much for phone games. It's a clear case of reaping what you sow. My diligent work attitude was recognized, and I was promoted in place of John. I've successfully led a major project, and everything is going smoothly. My parents are delighted with my success. Living earnestly, as my father advised, has truly opened up my life. I believe my father taught me something very important. I intend to continue living honestly, following my father's teachings.